Hi, welcome to Get Lit. My name's Pete Crooks. I'm senior editor and senior writer at Diablo Magazine. And on Get Lit, we meet writers from the East Bay here at the Walnut Creek Public Library. We are in for a real treat today. We've got cookbook author, it's Rosetta Costantino.
Very good.
Okay, I'm sorry. My pronunciation is always, I always freak out that I'm going to mispronounce. But I am so fascinated by cookbook art and presentation. My wife and I watch this channel called the Create channel on PBS, and it's all cooking shows and travel shows. And the way to present how to make food, but also to show it in its most beautiful form. I think there's such a fascinating art form to that. So how did you become inspired to create these two wonderful cookbooks?
Well, I have to tell you a little bit about myself.
Okay.
So I have to take you
Let's go back to the beginning.
to the beginning. I was born in Calabria, in a small town. Calabria, if you're not familiar where it is, it's typically referred to as the toe of the boot. So if you think of it really the shape of a boot, Calabria is the toe. So right in the heart of the Mediterranean. And I had two amazing grandmothers and my mom, who just knew how to make the best with what they had. And I have to tell you, my parents literally lived off the land. So when it came to buying food, they didn't buy any food at all. We had a parcel of land close to the sea. My town was about half an hour inland from the Mediterranean Sea. And we had vineyards, so my dad made wine also. And we had olives and fruits and vegetables. And he was also a master cheesemaker. So we had another parcel of land, a higher elevation. And at this parcel of land that they had, where they had the goats and made cheese, they also grew wheat, corn, potatoes, all the things that grow at higher elevations. So they really didn't buy anything when it came to food. So I was sort of born and raised really seeing them, what they could create with what they had.
Wow.
And they sort of lived the ideal life that we all want today. They were growing everything, it was organic, they only ate what was in season, and a very healthy diet.
Ultimate
too,
slow food lifestyle.
Yes, it's exactly what we all wish we could have nowadays. And from the time I was little, I was probably 4 or 5 years old, I wanted to be in the kitchen. And my grandmothers allowed me, they used to take care of me as my mom would work, and they allowed me to be in the kitchen. And I remember I couldn't even reach, and I would have to put in the garlic or something. So by the time I was 9, I was an amazing cook. I really had mastered how to make homemade pasta, and could really take care of myself if I had to. Anyway, so we moved to the States, California, in Oakland, in 1974. Didn't speak a word of English.
From Calabria.
From Calabria.
What brought you to Oakland?
My mom's brothers, both of them, had immigrated to Oakland in the 60s, and they used to come by and visit during the summer months. So they always used to tell them, you guys work too hard. And if you know anyone who lives off the land, who's a farmer, they work all the time. And they kept on saying, why don't you leave and move, to Oakland? You guys will have an easier life, and Rosetta will have better opportunities. And eventually they listened, and so we moved. And their attitude was, if we don't like it, we go back.
Does the family still own that land?
Yes, but it's all abandoned. It's all woods.
Oh, okay. Well, at least it's wild. It's not McDonald's and TJ Maxx.
So we moved here, and in the 70s, the Bay Area was very different than it is today. I mean, you couldn't find the, crusty breads that you find today. In fact, my mom even brought her starter in her purse so we could make bread the way we used to. And they brought all the seeds. So the minute we settled in, they started growing everything. So our backyard looked just like we never left Calabria. And even
where
today,
was your house in Oakland?
We're up in the Oakland Hills.
Nice.
But really nice locations where we have sun pretty much all day long. So they quickly started growing everything, all the vegetables, and kept on, started making their own preserves and our own ricotta and so forth. Anyway, I continue really cooking and learning, and it was really when we moved here that I explored the rest of Italy. Because all I knew were really the foods of my town, and the foods in Italy are very, the cooking is very local. I always tell my students there's no such thing as Italian cooking. It's local down to the town, even within the region. Even if you look at the region of Calabria, very different from north to south because again of the location.
How large is Calabria?
Calabria is very small in terms of, oh God, all of Italy is like a third of California.
Right. So there's just these tiny
Calabria,
microsections
yes.
where there's great diversity
Yes.
in the food,
Yes.
the presentation,
Yeah.
the diet. That's
and
amazing.
Calabria is amazing because if you look at it, it's really it's very narrow, and it has the Mediterranean on all three sides. We only border north Basilicata, but if you're familiar with Italy, it sort of has a spine of mountains that cuts right in the middle, the Apennines. So by the time you get to Calabria, all you have is that spine all the way to the toe. So we have the mountains, very high peaks, and then we have the coastline. So yeah, you get a lot of diversity in terms of, you get all the vegetables that love the sun in the Mediterranean, but you also have the seafood.
Yeah, what's the seafood like there?
Oh my God, it's amazing.
Yeah.
There's a lot more, of course, being in the Mediterranean that we would ever see here.
Sure.
So there are a lot of small fish. So they do tend to eat a lot of small fish. The big fish would be, the swordfish, the tuna, sea bass. But
So typically, how would you have a fish meal? Like it would come from? Was there somebody in the family that would go fish, or would that come from a market nearby from the day's catch?
It would be, and if you lived inland in the old days in the mountains, you really didn't get fresh fish. It wasn't really late, probably, I would say, the time I was born in the 60s and so forth, that people would come in, with a truck or something, even though we were only half an hour away. So in the old days, people would eat like salted cod, bacala, or they would use preserved salted anchovies in their dish, but they would not have fresh fish like they do today. The towns that were on the water, of course, have always had it. But nowadays, it's available.
Sure.
So people go to the market, and it's just amazing to go to the market because by 10, 11 o'clock, it's all gone. So it's whatever they caught for the day, that's what you get.
So even though the economy of food has progressed, the culture of food preparation is the same. It's nobody's doing fast food there. It sounds like everybody's still preparing their own food.
They are, but it's amazing how much it's changing too, which is really sad.
Oh, that's too bad.
Because the younger generation, I think they watch all of our shows.
And it's easy.
And they're
and
fascinated with our fast food. And so I see it even, with my relatives. And it's sort of like we want what they have, and they sort of want what we have. So I hope that they realize that it's not the right direction, and they stick to what they have, because what they have is just amazing, I think. And there are a lot of traditions, and that was one of the reasons why I wrote the book too. I wanted to preserve a lot of these recipes. There's a large section in the first book about just preserving, preserving vegetables that I'm finding that the younger generation is not doing. And so I wanted to make sure that I captured all of those so we can pass them on.
And in cookbooks, there are so many cookbooks. It's important to have a very unique personal purpose for the book. Yeah. And that's what you have with
the reason why I wrote this book is, we started talking when we moved in '74, when we moved here. And I would tell people I'm from Calabria. Most people would look at me and say, "What country is that?" They really had no idea where it was, and they really were not familiar with the foods that I grew up with. So, being a teenager, I quickly realized it's like, I'm not going to talk about it. And
did you have the greatest lunch though, like prepared?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Were you able to use that as barter?
No, not in those days.
Okay.
But as I was saying, I really started exploring the rest of Italy here, because our neighbors were from northern Italy. Then I met my husband, and my husband is from Palermo. He's from Sicily. Very different.
Did you meet your husband in Italy, or
no? I met him here.
So you met an Italian from Palermo
in
Oakland.
In Oakland. That's
great.
Right.
Where did you meet your husband?
I met him at a graduation party.
That's great.
So he was going to Cal. He was a freshman, and I was in high school.
Wow.
And then I ended up going to Cal. So I graduated from UC Berkeley.
What did you study at UC Berkeley?
Chemical engineering.
Wow.
So my career was in the high-tech world. So
Okay.
I started my career in Silicon Valley. So I started out as a process engineer and quickly moved up. So I had a very successful career. I was responsible for all of engineering. And during that time, I also had the opportunity to travel a lot. So wherever I would go, whether it was in Korea or in France, we had a plant in the Provence region, I always would explore the foods.
Oh,
It's like,
so
what are
great.
the locals eating? What? Because it was always my favorite thing to do.
And it's everywhere. There's
Yeah.
going to be a food market
Yeah.
or a food
Yeah.
culture
Yeah.
wherever, because we have to eat every day.
Yeah.
That's what I do. That when I travel, I love to find movie theaters. I love to find where the people go see movies. And I was in Fiji, and I went to a movie that had Jackie Chan in it, the action star, and they just stopped the movie halfway through for an intermission in the middle of an action sequence. They just stop the film and everybody goes outside and smokes cigarettes or stands in the
Takes a
sun
break.
for like 20 minutes. It was the most interesting thing because it was abhorrent as far as breaking up the continuity of the film, but fascinating culturally.
Yeah, to see the culture.
And I think that that has nothing to do with your cookbook, so let's get back to that. Anyway, as you travel the world in a high-tech career,
Yes.
you continued to study food as
Yeah, and I kept on learning on my own.
Right.
And I continue, and I think at home we would, I would always cook what I was brought up with.
So-
But this was in the 90s, and I felt like everyone wanted Tuscan food. And so I even ended up cooking Tuscan food for my friends because
Okay.
that's what I thought they wanted. And so I got to a certain point that I felt like, I want people to know the foods that I grew up with. I grew up with, I think, the healthiest diet, the best food.
Right.
And so in 2004, which was right when I thought I quit work. I didn't really quit, but anyway, I was going to quit work in 2001.
It was time to retire from
I
that
ended up staying as a consultant. I was working from home, but I had 2 kids, and
Okay.
it was just too much. The job was too demanding, and I decided, I don't want to keep on doing this. And I decided to be a stay-at-home mom. And it was during that time that I decided that I wanted to do something fun. And to me, fun is cooking.
Uh-huh.
And I said, I really want people to get to know this region where I grew up and the foods. And so I had this crazy idea I was going to teach cooking classes. So in 2004, everything fell into place. There was my co-author, Janet Fletcher, heard about me, and she wanted to interview me and wrote a piece in the San Francisco Chronicle. And there was a commercial kitchen, Paulding and Company in Eberville, that opened. And I said, I'll just do 2 for fun. I never intended to be a business or
Right.
keep on going for a long time. And she asked me if I wanted to list those 2 classes on the article. And I really didn't know what the article was going to be like.
Uh-huh.
So I told her, sure, go ahead. And I still remember she calls me back and she said, I had given her only my email address. She goes, well, not everybody has access to the internet. This was 2004.
Sure.
She says, would you mind putting in your phone number? And I kind of hesitated. I said, I really don't want to. But she goes, well, you should. So I listed the phone number. And the article came out, and I had not seen the article, and the phone started ringing at 7 in the
blew
morning.
up, yeah.
It just went crazy. I had not expected that at all. I really thought, people don't know where Calabria is. No one is going to come to these classes. As I said, everyone wanted me to teach Tuscan, cooking.
Mm-hmm.
And I ended up, so I listed 2 classes. I ended up with 250 people
Oh, no.
that wanted to come to those 2 classes. And I went, oh my God, what have I done?
Yeah.
And so I ended up doing 10 classes. And after the second class, people said, you got to keep on doing this. You
10
gotta do
classes with
more."
25 students?
20. I took
Right.
20. So I
Okay.
took 200 people.
Okay.
So it was that article that really started the whole thing.
Right.
I used those 250 email addresses that I had, and I listed like a few more classes, and they sold out right away.
That's fantastic.
And I said, well, maybe there is an interest in it. But during that time, when the article came out, I was inundated with emails from all over the world because the article went everywhere.
Sure.
And people who were just writing, thanking me for finally having written something about Calabria, about this region. And these were 2nd, 3rd, even 4th generations that they remembered recipes, they remembered dishes, from their grandmothers, but they had no idea how they
Right.
were prepared. They had nothing written down. And that's what gave me the idea of a proposal together and writing a cookbook, because I started thinking about my kids. And I said, my kids' are going to be like these people that are writing to me that have no clue
Right.
what their grandparents lived like or what they ate. And I said, I have to get all these recipes down. I need to write them down and pass them down to the next generation. And I said, hopefully I'll put Calabria on the map. So people, when I say I'm from Calabria, they'll say, I know where that is. They won't say, what country is that? Because I really want Americans to get to know this region, because it's a beautiful region.
Sure.
And it has so much to offer in terms of specialties and foods that you don't find anywhere else. So I put a proposal together, and Norton bought it. This was in 2005. And the book finally was published in 2010.
Wow.
Yeah. And,
well, it takes so much research to put the recipes together and to put the art together to make it, to present the book.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, good for Janet Fletcher. As a print journalist, I'm so excited when I hear what kind of reaction a story can have, and it can serve so many readers.
Yeah.
It's great as far as like over promoting your low ambition cooking class, like you were saying, oh, let's do this with a few people for fun.
Yeah.
And there's this like wave of cooking enthusiasts who are like, I'm here, when can we start?
Never expected it. Yeah.
But congratulations on that.
Yeah.
And so talk about the presentation of the book and how you put that together.
Well, the book is, as I said, I wanted to introduce Calabria also. So I didn't want it to be just a straight recipe book. So it has more than just recipes. There are a lot of stories in there. And there talks about, places to stay, to visit. So it really represents the entire region. I talk about all the specialties of Calabria. So it's the only book that really talks about the region and about the specialties.
It's a unique book for that way.
Yeah.
Have you thought about making a line of microwavable Calabrian dinners?
No.
Okay.
No.
So there's an audience for this book, obviously,
Yes.
and a great response, because, like you said, these lost generations have disconnected from the regional cuisine and the tradition of that food.
Yeah.
And isn't the Mediterranean diet like the healthiest possible?
And that's what I said. There's all the dishes are wonderful, but especially the pantry section, it's very large, because I wanted to make sure, because I felt the time was right, that a lot of people want to know how to do it themselves, whether it be canning tomatoes or preserving, vegetables during the summer months. So this was sort of my dream and my goal, and I accomplished, and I thought I was done. It's like, okay. And I said, I'll continue teaching. As long as people are interested and I'm having fun, I'll keep on doing it. And then as soon as I was done, of course, my agent says, what are you going to do next? I'm like, nothing, I'm done. And she kept at it. And one day we had coffee, and she said, I want you to write a book about Southern Italian desserts. And I looked at her and I said, what? I'm like, I'm not a pastry chef, and I don't bake. I said, I'm not doing that. And she goes, no, you already have all the recipes. She goes, you teach cooking classes and you always do different desserts from Southern Italy. And I wasn't too excited about the idea. And she kept at it. She goes, there's no such book on the market. She goes, and Celia from Omnivore Books, I don't know if you're familiar with Omnivore Books in San Francisco. She says she wants that book on her bookshelf. She said, so I really think you should do it. And I kind of joked about it, and I said, oh, no one will buy it, I guess. She says, well, if I'll sell it, she says, will you do it? I said, okay, I'll think about it. So she sold it, and so I was like, oh, I have to do it now. So then it became a fun project. I told her, I said, I'll do it, but it has to be my favorite desserts, a collection of my favorite desserts. And she says, you put it together, you do what you like to do. And so what I did is, I researched, as I said, and there was nothing on the market, even in Italian, there's no such book. And what I wanted to do was really to travel, go all over Southern Italy and find things that I would fall in love with, but I never had before, or that I wasn't aware of it. So it ended up being a collection. There's some classics, because I had to include like cannolis, right? A family recipe, but there are so many in there that I never had before. And also that have never been documented. They're not documented in Italian or in English. So it became kind of a fun project.
It's like an adventure.
It was an adventure.
Right? So wait a second, how are your kids out of high school at this point?
Well, my son, who's Adrian, the youngest one, who helped me with all the research and testing it, he was in high school.
Okay.
So we went to Italy, and we drove. My poor husband drove around for 3,500 miles. And so we tested everything. And we bought a lot of things and brought him back. And he has an amazing, amazing palate. He was able, you know, we would make it.
Your son or your husband?
My son.
Okay.
We would make it and we would taste and it would go, oh, no, it's missing this or it's missing that. And we were able to recreate them because a lot of the recipes, all we had were the ingredients. We would go in towns, you know, we didn't know the town, we didn't know anybody, so I would just look for pastry shops, and I would ask, and most of the time, you know, the lady would say, well, the chef is not here, or you know, I don't know, but these are the ingredients, and so I would write down all the ingredients because typically in Italy when they're selling to the public, they have to list the ingredients.
Okay.
So I would come back with the cookies and the ingredients, and then we sort of re-engineered it and came up with the recipes. Some of them I think are even better.
Couldn't you open a shop here that sells these desserts?
You could, but I'm not going to do that.
You're not.
But people have the recipes that they can make it, and the recipe had been tested over and over again, so they work.
So tell me about the most obscure recipe that you found. What was the most like unique, nobody knows about this except this little town, that came into this book?
Oh, there are quite a few, but there's one in here, and I think you also will have the picture because my publicist sent it to Liz. I have to show you these. These are it's kind of it's a hazelnut filling, chocolate hazelnut filling with a little cake, and then dipped in chocolate. And then the ends are dipped in white chocolate with pistachio on the end. This, I had this the first time we went in Palermo, and my husband said, I want you to taste my favorite dessert. And I had it and then never had it again. And so when I was about to write this book, I said, I want to include, you know, that. All I remember was, you know, this chocolate roll in the book. And I researched, nothing comes up, nothing. You can Google all you want, you know, with, it's called Africano in Palermo. And you also don't find it during the summer months. And most of the time we would go during the summer months because they usually do it during the cooler months. And so my sister-in-law, who lives in Palermo, who's a doctor, but her passion is baking, I said to her, I want to include this, we have to figure it out. She came. She brought like 6 of these, and we tried to figure it out, how to make it.
Investigate all the material. They're like CSI of dessert.
This is one that I basically was not going to include it in the book because I made this thing 8 times, and it wasn't coming out the way I wanted. And it was that my son who finally said, no, we're going to figure it out, we're going to do it. And what threw us off was that we thought we were tasting rum. So we kept on playing with putting rum into the filling, and the filling just wasn't coming out right. But actually the one that we had tasted, because then we went back again, they had soaked the sponge a little bit with the rum.
Okay.
But the other place we had, they had not soaked it with rum, which we chose to do it without rum anyway, so kids can have it too.
And you thought the rum was in the filling.
Yeah.
And so there was a hint of rum, but it wasn't overwhelming.
Yeah, but we just couldn't get the creaminess that we wanted in the filling. So this one we ended up like doing it 10 times, but we finally got it and then we put it in. But this is an unusual one that no one knows. I mean, only people really from Palermo know about it. Even if you go in Sicily, they're not familiar with it.
How has the book been received in Palermo? Like, is there some ownership that this is supposed to be a secret and it's not supposed to go to Oakland?
You know, I haven't gone back. I'm going back this fall. I do a culinary tour.
Okay.
And so this is the first time I'll bring the book back, because when I was there, the book was not published yet. Right. So I will bring it back, especially to people, you know, that helped out. But the few people that have seen it, they want it in Italian. So they go, we would love to have it, because again, as I said, there are a lot of recipes that, you know, people, you just can't get your hands on it. I've had a lot of people who wrote to me and say, oh my God, I've been trying for years to find the recipe, and you know, they're thankful that finally I've you know, documented them.
What a gorgeous book.
And the secrets are out. Yeah, they did a beautiful job. These are some of my favorite cookies. They're all wonderful cookies. So,
Rosetta, this book seemed like that this was the mission in life.
Yes.
You know, you had a high-tech career in the Silicon Valley, but really your love was food, and you achieved that mission. This one seems like even more joyful. I guess there's so much more surprise to this one.
It is. This, as I said, it wasn't planned for, but I love it. It has turned out to be a beautiful book, and there's just amazing recipes. And every day, you know, I'm making them. It's like, again, it's like, wow, I can't believe it. I figured it out. Because as I said, I'm not a pastry chef. I'm not a baker. I wasn't raised with eating desserts. Desserts were only for special occasions. But just that satisfaction of being able to do it,
right.
I'm confident that anybody, you know, can do it. There are some that are challenging.
Right.
I have to agree.
Advanced level desserts, right?
But you know, I wanted to cover the whole range.
It has every element that is necessary for a cookbook. It has the personal point of view, and you can read it as a story. You can also, it's so useful. And then the visual presentation is so important in cookbooks. Yeah. Do you use the internet for recipe sharing and everything? Do you think?
I do have a website, and the front page is a blog. I'm not an active blogger, just because of the time that it requires, but I do post. I try to post as much as I can. So I do share a lot of recipes that also were not included in the book, both books. That's sort of what I've been doing. And I'm also busy. I go to Italy every year. I do a culinary tour. So I do a culinary tour.
So do you take people from the States?
From the States. So I do a culinary tour to Calabria, and this year I'm doing one to Sicily.
Fantastic.
So those are also
what time
listed
of year do
on
you
the
do
website.
That?
September. So that's the best time.
So we still have many months to sign up for that.
Yes.
So to tell us your website so we can...
It's really simple. It's cookingwithrosetta.com.
Cookingwithrosetta.com. I did have a look at it. It's a beautiful website, very well presented. Your books are wonderful, so thank you so much for coming to Walnut Creek to share your story.
Well, thank you for having me.
Oh, it's a real treat to speak with you. These are terrific cookbooks for food lovers. There's a great story in each of them, and wonderful, wonderful food to create. So thank you so much to Rosetta Costantino.
Costantino, you got it.
Thank you so much for coming, and enjoy these experiences that you're having. They're very well, richly deserved.
Thank you.
And thank you at home for watching Get Lit. This is such a thrill to meet so many creative people and hear their stories. It's a real treat, and there's so many adventures to be had here at the Walnut Creek Public Library or any of the public libraries in the area. So keep going to the libraries and tune in again to Get Lit. Thanks for watching.